Welcome back to another episode of Caps Off by the Game Day. It is Week 10 Fantasy Recaps Day. Another day for me to recap how one of my leagues is just breaking my heart. Another day for Felipe to talk about his massive dynasty trade he made to get Bijan Robinson. But before we jump into that dynasty trade, to Felipe's left, to my right, is the Fantasy Football's Hall of Famer. The Hall of Fame that owns the fantasy football.
Yeah,
Scotty the King.
Yep. Somehow that kind of worked.
I didn't know where I was going with it. I'll be honest.
Fantasy Sports Writers Association.
No, I know what it actually is.
Hall of Fame.
I know what it actually is.
You just try to have a little bit more fun with it, and it just didn't come
It didn't-
out.
no,
like,
but-
it wasn't great.
Look,
It wasn't a great delivery. It was
Wasn't
like Josh
white-
Allen.
Wasn't Boy
Yeah, no, it didn't work out. But hey,
Josh Allen is like a mobile Brett Favre, without the ring.
And bigger. And no ring.
handsome as well, I guess.
Oh, Brett Favre is much more handsome than Josh Allen.
But he aged like a fine wine. I feel like Josh right now, like,
Nah, Brett Favre was a hot youngin' too.
yeah, but that's fair. I don't know.
Look at his young pictures when
I
he
feel
got
like Brett
drafted
Favre
by
is hot
Atlanta.
now or like 10 years ago.
If you like
Hot.
Wrangler jeans commercials.
I was going to say
yeah.
Wrangler jeans. I mean, I've never worn Wrangler jeans.
And like
but-
old trucks and shit. Yeah, come on.
But
How's
hey,
that
we
guy?
have Scotty the King on
Scotty!
today's episode
Yeah.
to talk through some fantasy overreactions, underreactions. We're going to go through some panic meters, some exhilaration meters, as I've come up with, some guessing of the fantasy stats, if you will.
Oh, God. Scott's going to be so good at this.
Scott, before we jump into it, as a reminder, if you are watching on YouTube, go check out our audios anywhere. Go follow us on TikTok. If you're on TikTok, go to our YouTube page, hit that subscribe button. Helps us out tremendously. If you're listening, go check out the full episode on YouTube. Scott, how are
And
you?
also,
Oh.
if you're watching and listening, make sure you go to thegameday.com for my weekly
Ooh.
waiver wire is
Plug
up now.
yourself.
Spit.
Sleepers, Bus,
Tough.
Sam Wagman's matchup to exploit.
Always.
Sam
We got
Wagner.
Stardom and Sidham too. And
Yes,
of
sir.
course, Frank Amarante,
Woo!
who was top 10 again last week.
He was
in
top 10
ranking.
again?
No, Frank was.
No,
He
Frank was?
top 10.
So Frank now has
The last 5 weeks, he's got like 4 top 25s, or like 5 top 25s, 4 top 15s,
so for
3
context
top 10s, and 2 top 2s.
for those listening or those watching, one of the writers here at the Game Day,
Which we've talked about a lot,
we've
Frank.
talked about a lot, has obviously does the fantasy rankings week over week.
at
and-
the site, yeah.
And everyone submits that to Fantasy Pros, right? Like Fantasy Pros
Yeah.
recognizes all these experts. Frank Amarante's rankings have been within the top 25 in the last 5 weeks and
Right.
within the top 15 in the last 4 weeks. Did I
Right.
get that correct?
Mhm.
He was top 10 this past week. He was top 2 in weeks 4 and 5, I think it was.
Right.
If you are needing to make a decision on who to start and who to sit,
Mm.
check out the rankings. 'cause he's been
TheGameDay.com.
pretty fucking accurate. Yeah. Also, before we jump into it, the reason we have you on here, as we alluded to at the beginning, is
Because he's so handsome.
and he's a Seahawks fan, and
Thank
the
you.
Cowboys play the Seahawks fan soon.
That's true.
So
Cowboys.
you'll have
Seahawks.
to have me
Cowboys
back
fan?
in week 13. Then.
That's
Exactly.
true.
But no,
It's a
seriously,
Thursday night game.
you were inaugurated into the Fantasy Football Hall of Fame. Yes, is this
Fantasy
correct?
Sports Writers Association Hall of Fame, first class 2011. Me, Eric Carabell, legendary Greg Kellogg, Greg Ambrosius, who was the publisher of one of the original fantasy football magazines. I know you don't know what a magazine is, but if you look it up, like one of the
Never
first
heard of it.
fantasy sports magazines, he runs the National Fantasy Football Championships now. One of the guys, and Matthew Berry was also in that class. so,
Matthew Berry.
yeah.
That's the big one that I wanted you to get at. But yeah, so we have a Fantasy Football Hall of Famer here to talk through Week 10's fantasy recaps. Before we jump into it, I want to play a little game. I enjoyed games. We've been playing a lot of games. This might be easier for you, so maybe allow Felipe to guess first and then throw. Because
Nah, I'm gonna smoke Scott in this. Are you kidding me?
Not as good as games as I am on analysis, but let's have
that's you'll get it. It's pretty much the same thing. But I want you to guess the 7 tight ends that have had 2+ games with 20+ fantasy points
Trey
this
McBride.
season. All right, so it's guessing a little bit of the fantasy stat, but with a tight end mixed to it. So that's your first guess. Trey McBride. Obviously, this is a Trey McBride Stan account
Yeah.
over here. Trey McBride is on that list. He has 2.
Easy peasy.
Yep, that
TJ
was easy.
Hawkinson.
TJ Hawkinson has
Had one
3.
this week.
Yep, TJ Hawkinson is
Travis
on there.
Kelsey.
Travis Kelsey is also on there. Again, nothing crazy here, but it's a Trey
Dalton
McBride account.
Kincaid.
Dalton Kincaid is not there.
Really?
So the people that
Guy.
you have is Hawkinson, Kelsey,
Unbelievable.
and Trey
Sam
McBride.
Laporta.
Sam Laporta is not there. and this is in a
George
full
Kittle
PPR
for
league.
sure.
Question.
George Kittle's there. He
Yeah.
has 3 on the year.
Mark Andrews.
Mark Andrews is there.
You see that, bro? I haven't missed yet.
You need 2 more. So no Sam Laporta, no Kincaid. 2 other tight ends
I don't
have
think
scored.
Evan Ingram is
Dalton
there.
Schultz.
Dalton Schultz is not there.
Ooh.
Missed.
Evan Ingram's not. Right?
Not there.
Right.
2 other tight ends have had 2 or more games with 20-plus fantasy points this year. Who are they?
Janu Smith.
Who?
Janu Smith from the Falcons.
You're adorable. I love you. Janu?
Yeah.
No, not there. Okay. I like Janu though. That's a good one. That's a new one that I haven't heard.
Goddard's on.
Goddard's not there.
Goddard's not there. No.
Huh.
Hunter Henry's certainly not there.
No. Hunter Henry's definitely not there.
Well, damn.
Did I stump you? Did I stump the king?
Michael Myers not there. No, it just take him a little longer.
Okay.
Well, I'm
No
stumped.
Colts,
I don't know any more
no
tight ends.
Jaguars.
Jeremy Shockey,
Mm.
Kellen Winslow.
Shockey.
Jeremy Shockey had 1. Jeremy Shockey had 1.
Jake Ferguson.
Nope.
That's
Jake
a good one.
Jake
That-
Ferguson's
that
a good
was
pull, but
That
not
was a
there.
good guess. Nobody on Cincinnati.
You got
Nobody on
2.
Cleveland.
You
Darren
got,
Waller.
No. You got 2 that you're going to be like, yeah, we should have got that.
Oh, fuck.
Hold on. Give me a second.
Come on, King. Come on, King.
Darren Waller's not on there.
Darren Waller's not there.
Logan Thomas is not there.
Logan Thomas
Luke
is not
Musgrave is not there.
there. No, I
I
wish
already
though.
said Hawkinson.
Nope.
Cole Kmet.
Cole Kmet is there.
Really?
Yeah.
He has 2 games with 20-plus fantasy
Oh,
points.
wow.
Yes. You need 1
Said-
other player.
Said Laporte is not on
Laporta, no. Kincaid, no.
Musgrave.
Waller, no. Musgrave, I wish. Durham Smythe?
there. No.
I know.
Kyle
It's
Pitts is
Definitely
on
not there. Come on. Let me know when you need a hint.
Kate Otten.
Nope.
That was a good
Good pull,
guess.
though. Hey, shout out No Gloves.
It's not Tyler Conklin.
Not Tyler Conklin.
God, man. What?
You ready for a hint?
Yes.
This is a do-it-all type of guy.
Taysom Hill.
Taysom Hill
God
is the
damn it.
final person with 20
I
with
wasn't
more
constantly
than
thinking
2 games.
Tight end because he's not a real tight
He's
end.
such like a.
So the
a
list here are the
hybrid.
7 tight ends that have had 2+ games with 20+ PPR fantasy points this year. TJ Hawkinson had 3, Travis Kelce 3, Mark Andrews 2, Trey McBride 2, Cole Kmet 2, Taysom Hill 2, George Kittle 3.
Does
All
Smythe have 20 all year?
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah.
I got 1 more game for you though.
That was fun.
I like that
enjoyed
one. That was good. Shout out Dalton Kincaid
Shout out
and
Trey
that
McBride.
there actually. Trey McBride. Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to, but we've been a major Trey McBride
We've been huge.
propaganda machine over here.
Yeah.
Major.
Best
Okay.
tight end of all time.
Here's the other one. Now, this one is not as crazy, but there is something to it, obviously. So, another guessing of the fantasy stats. Can you guess the top 10 fantasy quarterbacks on the year?
Year. Josh Allen.
Josh Allen is
easy.
QB1. So, even coming off a
Nice.
bad week,
Justin Herbert.
Justin Herbert is QB4.
Lamar
correct.
Jackson.
Lamar Jackson is QB5.
Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick
I was
Mahomes is
about to say Mahomes.
QB8.
CJ Stroud.
CJ Stroud is QB9. We're flowing. We're doing fantastic.
Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson
No.
is not there.
He's not there.
Damn.
Let's see. Dak Prescott.
Dak Prescott,
Yeah.
QB6
Damn
after
straight.
starting off slow.
Yeah. Hell
Come
yeah.
on, since week 6, he went 25 points in the bye, 29 points,
Right.
28 points, 39
Some
points.
are saying MVP. Some are saying.
I'm saying it too.
I would say he's Dallas's MVP.
I would say
That might
Felipe
be
is
Michael
Dallas's.
Parsons, though.
I would say Dallas is Dallas needs Felipe, so Felipe
That's
is the MVP
true.
of Dallas. Come on, here we go. We're missing
How
Baker
about
Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield is not there. We're missing a few.
Brock Purdy.
Not there. Brock Purdy is not a top 10 quarterback in fantasy this year, right now after week
This
10.
is dangerous because but I'm going to say Burrow.
Joe Burrow is not there.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow is currently quarterback 17 on the year.
Did we
Oh,
say
damn.
Jalen Hurts?
We did not say Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
QB2 on the year and had a bye
Nice.
this past week.
Yep.
Right.
By the way, Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen are so far ahead of the pack
That's
because
crazy.
Jalen
Jared
Hurts had
Goff.
Jared Goff is not in the top 10. He's
Really?
QB12 on the year. But I was saying
'Cause he's not
Jalen
been on
Hurts
the
has
road.
213 fantasy points on the year and had his bye this past week. Josh Allen is obviously QB1, has 235 fantasy points.
I
The
got
next
one.
Kirk
closest,
Cousins would have been there if he didn't get hurt.
I got one. My guy, Josh Dobbs.
Josh Dobbs. This is a Josh Dobbs fantasy episode. This is a Josh Dobbs stat. He is QB7 on the year ahead of Patrick
Because he's
Mahomes.
played all those games with the Cardinals.
And everyone's going to be like, well, Patrick Mahomes had the bye, right? This past
Yeah,
week. So
yeah.
no wonder Josh Dobbs had 1 fantasy point in week 1. I do not want to hear it. That is the epitome of a buy. So they are net, as we would say.
Josh Dobbs.
Josh Dobbs,
man.
QB7 on the
We
year.
just
Patrick
end the
Mahomes,
podcast
QB8.
there. Shout out
How many
Josh
more are we
Dobbs.
missing?
You are missing 2.
Missing 2.
Missing 2. Missing 2. 1 is offensive.
Oh,
One's offensive.
1 is offensive that you haven't gotten this one.
Tua Tagovailoa.
Tua Tagovailoa. Thank you very much for being defensive.
Yep, I want to protect you.
Thank you. And you need one
Trevor
more.
Lawrence.
By the way, Tua is QB10.
Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence is
That's
Deshaun
definitely
Watson.
not there. Deshaun Watson is not there. Trevor Lawrence is QB18 on the year. Been bad. Who is QB3 on the year?
Oh, damn.
QB3.
We already
Sam Howell.
Sam
Howell.
Wow. I didn't
Is
realize he
him.
was that high. I thought he was top 10, but not
Sam
that high.
Howell has 191.7 fantasy points on the year. That's 191.7 on the year.
Here's something interesting.
2 more
Sort
points
it
than
and
Justin
tell me
Herbert.
who the top 5 are by average points per game.
Oh,
Because
that
when
would,
you're evaluating quarterbacks, you should go by average more than total.
Okay, you want the top 5 quarterbacks in fantasy based off of averages this year?
Yeah, just
Do you
tell
want to
me.
guess them? You want me to just tell you?
me.
Jalen Hurts is number 1,
Right,
23.7.
right.
Allen
Josh Allen,
has a good
23.6. He's QB2. Justin Herbert, 21 at QB3. Dak Prescott at 20.5, QB4. And Patrick Mahomes, 19.9 at
Right.
QB5.
Right.
Kirk Cousins is still there. Obviously, he
Yeah.
hasn't played the last 2, so that hurts.
Cousins
him,
was
but-
like
What's the
top
averages at
5
that
when he
point,
was
so?
playing.
yeah, so isn't that crazy? Sam Howell and Josh Dobbs are
That's
in the
impressive.
top
Where
10
does
quarterbacks.
Sam Howell and Josh Dobbs rank in the average points per game?
Sam Howell, please give me a second. Sam Howell is currently QB8 in averages.
Okay. That's pretty
Josh
good.
Dobbs is further down, and I'm not going to count it, but he's outside the top 10.
I don't care. He's in that first list.
Total points, more total points than Patrick Mahomes.
Look,
Just saying.
some people are saying Dak Prescott MVP. Others are saying Josh
Who's
Dobbs is
saying
the
Dak
greatest
Prescott
quarterback of all
MVP
time.
outside of you?
Some people.
They
Some-
haven't beat a winning team. How could he be in the end?
Well, hold on. This is not the caps off. This is fantasy.
Yeah, but I
but
watch Caps Off every day, and you guys rile me up with things you're going to say. And
But
now's
in
my
defense
opportunity to weigh in.
in defense of Felipe, if we're gonna say CJ Stroud is in the conversation, I too believe Dak Prescott deserves to be in the conversation.
CJ Stroud just beat the Bengals.
I'm with you, but a team is winning and playing well as well. Dak is doing
I'm
Hey,
it.
not saying
Dak-
Dak sucks. I'm not like one
I
of
think
those
that's
people
what you're
that says
saying.
Dak sucks. I think Dak is a pretty good quarterback, but MVP, no.
Nah, MVP. You want to hear something,
I'm not
Scott?
saying he is the MVP. I'm
The
just
last-
saying he should be in the MVP
The last four,
conversation.
the last 4 games, Dak Prescott's first in passing yards, first in passing touchdowns, first in total touchdowns, 72% completion rate. That's second. First in QBR, first in pass yards per attempt, and first
So
in
you're
EPA per
reading the
play.
Dallas Cowboys pregame press release. It's like,
That's a good point.
you know, these are
Hey,
all
they
nice.
still got
stats.
released. PR.
I
That's what we
didn't
do.
say he wasn't good, but guy can't be an MVP if he doesn't beat winning teams.
He's going to.
Well,
Go ahead.
okay. Well, now you're just striking a chord with the Tua conversation and the Dolphins. We're
All
not
right.
going to get into there.
It's the
But
same
as a
thing. These
reminder,
guys are really good quarterbacks.
as a
They're not elite.
reminder, this is the Week 10 Fantasy Recaps episode. So make sure if you have any questions about Week 10, anything fantasy related, drop them down below. We'll ask the king. We'll go through it. We'll debate it. So make sure to do that. We see all the questions. We see all the comments. Josh Pilecki asked, does Adam and Felipe have rankings? We do not because we stink at this.
No, you know,
MK5VWs asked, is Dallas Goedert out for the season? No, he's just on IR, right?
he's on IR.
Broken forearm.
Don't count.
What else? MK also said Kyler Murray is going to be a top 5 quarterback within the next few weeks. Are you buying or selling that?
I would say top 10. You know, we can't just react to what we saw this past week. Kyler Murray will always have upside, but Kyler Murray sometimes has low floor weeks and he's erratic. So, look, I like Murray, but I would say pump the brakes a little bit. And by the way, there's a lot of people that spell brakes wrong. Like BRAKES. Not
Brakes as in the
BRE.
car. I was
Yeah,
about to
brakes
spell
as
it
in a
wrong
car.
too.
Pump those car brakes a little bit. I like him. He's going to have
brake.
spike weeks,
Mm,
but I wouldn't say top 5.
that's fair. What do you think?
Top 8, yes.
Got anything to that, Felipe?
No, I think it's the same. I mean, upside's insane. And so you like that,
He
especially
does have some disappointing weeks, though.
his rushing. Like, I was worried about his legs, though,
You look good.
right? Like, not necessarily
That's what he
worried.
did best.
Yes, but coming back from injury first game, I thought it would be a slower progression. I mean,
So did
he,
I.
he looked like he used to. And so that was really good to see. So I think it's what Scott said. Maybe a lower floor, but very high ceiling.
Well, I think what I would a
you go.
good way to contextualize Kyler Murray is Kyler Murray versus Justin Fields. Who would you prefer rest of season? I don't think it's that crazy to say Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Well, we saw Justin Fields before he got hurt, and the way they let him loose as a passer. If he comes back and plays like that, I want Fields.
Yeah, Fields was looking good before
I
he got hurt.
agree
He had
with-
2 consecutive 4-touchdown passing games.
I agree with you, but we know in the NFL, like 4 touchdowns is not something to expect week over week.
No.
So
No, but that's just Kyler Murray. I just don't see any 4-touchdown games.
that's fair. I totally agree
Nah,
with that.
5 touchdowns to Trey McBride only.
All right, I
every
want to
game.
move into a segment that did really well on TikTok last week. And it's a segment that I think obviously encapsulates what happened over the last
Ooh,
couple of weeks
encapsulates.
and also in week 10. So this is Caps Off's Panic at the Disco. All right.
Yeah.
The week 10 panic
I saw
meter.
those guys live. Yeah.
You saw Panic at the Disco live?
Yeah.
Wow. Can you sing a song?
What was that hit song? I know it too.
I chimed in with haven't you be right?
What was
I
their
write sins
biggest
not-
hit?
I write sins not tragedies.
What was their
Yeah,
biggest
you're right,
hit?
I think.
Closing the goddamn door? No.
There was another one. It was like their first breakthrough hit. I know
don't
what
know.
it is if I hear it.
All right.
I saw them
hold on.
open up for Muse at Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
pretty
you are
sick.
about to panic at the disco. House of Memories, I Write Sins Not Tragedies, Victorious.
I don't know, man.
All
That's
right,
the one
I
that
have
was playing
no
on the
idea.
radio, their first big hit.
I feel like it's
that's
I
the
Write
only
Sins
one
Not
I
Tragedies.
know.
Bum, bum, bum,
I don't know what it is. I'll tell you after.
bum, bum. All right.
I just can't
What's the
remember.
Panic at the Disco,
My
our
mind's
week
not
10
there.
panic meter in fantasy? All right. I'm going to name a player and I want to hear on a scale of 1 to 10 how much you're panicking. All right. Start with someone that's near and dear to my heart, Calvin Ridley. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much you panicking?
8, 9.
Wide receiver 43 on the year.
I'm done with him.
I would say 7.
Why?
There's just too many mouths to feed. I hate using cliches, but too many mouths to feed on that offense. And Trevor Lawrence's play has been up and down. And I originally thought in the preseason, I said, it's a lot for that guy to come off a long layoff and still be a number 1 wide receiver, especially when there's so much else going onto that offense.
Yeah, I think he's had 14 plus points in three times this year. I think I agree. I'm like 7.5, 8
There's
right
no
there.
floor.
There's no floor, and I think you have to keep him on the bench right now. That's the unfortunate part with Calvin Ridley because we know his highs can be up there with some of the best in the NFL in terms of like wide receiver 1 production.
Totally.
It's just not going to fucking come, and we
I
don't know if
drafted
it's ever
Tank
going to
Dell
come.
like 12 rounds later,
And he's been better. He's been
been
way better.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think Calvin Ridley is right in that 7 to 8 spot. Another guy, DJ Moore. He had 10.9 fantasy points this week. Over the last 5 weeks, he's had 10.9, 5.4, 9.5, 13.4, 10.1. He's yet to score more than 10 fantasy points in a game without Justin Fields.
Panic is 5 because Fields is coming back. So.
Yeah. Thoughts?
That's exactly it. Said the same thing last week. Yeah, when we thought Fields was coming back last week, okay, he didn't come back. That's fine. Expected for DJ Moore not to have another an insane game. He's gonna get back to kind of what he was doing before.
I think
The trade
5,
deadline's coming up. Good time to buy on.
I think
DJ
5 is
Moore.
right on the money. If not, it could be anywhere from a 3 to 5, depending on what you need. I feel like
Yeah.
because
Good
DJ
time to buy on
great
DJ
time to
Moore.
buy.
If you have a winning record and you want to have them for the playoffs, trade for him.
A lot of people coming in on TikTok right now. Make sure to drop your fantasy questions. This is the Week 10 Fantasy Recaps episode with Scotty the King, a Fantasy Football Hall of Famer, next to Matthew Berry. So make sure to drop your questions, trade questions. We'll go ahead and answer them.
I'm actually next to Felipe.
Yeah.
Well, you're also next to me. We're next to each
No,
other
we're
on
act-
this.
We're actually physically closer to each
All
other.
right. All right. All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you panicking on Adam Thielen? It's a third consecutive
I
game
would-
without
I would-
scoring
I
a
would-
touchdown.
I would say 5 because I think he played over his head statistically early on.
Mm.
And it's kind of like you were getting a bonus for a guy that wasn't even drafted in a lot of leagues. So my expectations were always kind of that he was going to regress, but he could have a few more good games. As Bryce Young continues to progress, he's not CJ Stroud, but I think he'll continue to get better. So I'm not overly panicking because whatever I got out of Adam Thielen already, I considered a bonus.
Totally.
Yeah, I agree. I would go even less, probably 3 or 4. Like, you weren't expecting that type of performance early on. That's awesome that you got it, and it got you in a position to where you're starting them every week. I think you're getting now what you probably expected, and maybe even slightly better than you expected.
8
in the
fantasy
first place.
points. He's averaging 8 fantasy points over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like before the season. If you were to look at Adam Thielen,
I don't even
you-
think people
expected
expected
that.
fantasy points.
and so I think you're okay.
I agree. I think I might go as low as like 3 because I think you have to factor in what he did at the beginning of the year. I totally agree with you. if he was doing this like consistently over the year, you'd be like, you wouldn't even be in this conversation, right? If he didn't do what he did.
Yeah.
Volume remains king. I think the touchdowns will be like
Now
the
Scott remains king.
volatile aspect of
I was
it.
just about to
That's
say
a
that,
good
yeah,
point.
thank you.
But Adam Thielen ranks 12th among wide receivers this season with 85 targets. He's 5th in total receptions. I think he's going to be fine. I'm putting it at a 3.
Okay.
I think he's going to be what he is.
This
Yeah.
is the one of the contentious ones.
Mm.
Tony Pollard, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much are we panicking?
9, 10.
You're
10, get rid of him.
Your full panic meter?
I'm going to that Cowboys front office right now, and I'm cutting Tony Pollard.
Woo!
Okay.
He doesn't have the burst that Rico Dowdle has, bro.
Exactly.
The only reason we were so high on him last year, look, he produced his ass off last year, but it was the burst, it was the explosiveness, it was these being able, he was using these in this utility piece way that he was just getting yards left and right. And like now this year, even in those positions, he's not being able to really capitalize on that.
55 scoreless yards against the worst team in the league. This was supposed to be a get-right game for Tony Pollard. Instead, as the man said, okay, Rico Dowdle ran with burst.
Yeah, he looked
He
good.
made tacklers miss.
He looked good.
Rico Dowdle is now a threat to start taking carries in a timeshare. Read my waiver wire column on thegameday.com. Bid 10% of your fab or more on Rico Dowdle this week.
Or you just already have Rico Dowdle, like someone on this podcast.
If I
does
in every
multiple
league
leagues.
do I have Pollard, I have Dowdle
Same.
because I wanted the insurance plan.
Yeah, man.
I don't know if I'm going 10 because 10 to me is like there's no coming back from it. I still think it's an 8.5 because I think last week it was an
I'm
8.
at
So I'll
9
go
with him.
8.5.
Yeah.
I'll go 8.5. I'll split. I'll go slightly lower. The last touchdown for Tony Pollard came in the third quarter of week 1.
Yep.
I do think the reason he's not a full on 10 and the reason I would still not try to buy low, but if you need a running back, because I think he is at the floor. He is in the basement right now, and there is still a chance, bless your soul, that he can be an RB2 with upside. That's the only reason I'm putting him
I
at
don't
an 8.
see any upside.
Well, of course he has upside. He's Tony Pollard on one of the better offenses in the NFL. There's always-
55 scoreless yards against the New Jersey
I know what he
Giants.
did.
Worst
That's-
team
The
in
New
football.
Jersey Giants. Was that on
Worst-
purpose?
Worst team in football. He has no upside.
I'm putting it at 8.5. I'm not panicking. There is someone on here that I have on my 10, though. All right, next
Yes,
up.
that was intentional.
That was a good one. Aaron Jones, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much you panicking?
I'm panicking a 7 because I thought he was bouncing back, and now he's not. So they just don't have a run game. That's a sorry offense. You know, maybe I also
like
talk about Reed, the rookie, in my waiver column.
Jaden
He's
Reed,
worth
yeah.
a flyer.
What do you think?
Yeah, I was gonna, Scott keeps stealing my numbers and shit, but so I was gonna say around 7, but 6 or 7. I think we thought he was gonna bounce back, and Adam, you and I talked about that multiple times,
Yep.
and it just hasn't been in the same way. So yeah, I would say around that.
I agree. I think I got to put him in the 6-7 range because he was getting healthy and he looked good, and then somehow just dropped. There were 2 opportunities that he dropped passes, and that right out of the gate, Matt LaFleur kind of benched him a little bit. So the only reason he's not higher than that is because at full health, like he's still getting used a lot, and he's got a good playoff schedule. But you got to be concerned. I think there's
There are
definitely room
some
for concern
people
with how
out
bad that
there
team has
who
been.
Still believe that Tony Pollard can bounce back.
Like me.
Make sure you trade with those people. Make sure you trade with them.
I'm not saying
Because
Tony
right
Pollard's
now,
going to be the RB1 in
if you
fantasy,
have
but I'm saying
Aaron
that
Jones
Tony
and
Pollard
Tony
is someone that
Pollard,
can return.
You are, what's the best way I can say this? You are screwed.
Well, if those are your 2 running backs, yeah, for sure. But I'm just saying, the way the running
Those
backs
are the
are,
2 guys you drafted, you're in bad
the
shape.
way the running back position is right now, there are only a handful of guys that you feel comfortable with in terms of fantasy. Outside of that, it is a crapshoot. So the only reason I'm saying, if you need a running back, if your fucking running back is Aaron Jones and you're panicking and you just want someone that is pretty similar in terms of boom or bust, I don't mind if you have to go to get Tony Pollard. That's all I'm saying.
There's no boom for Tony.
I totally disagree. We haven't
There's
seen
boom
it.
for Aaron Jones. 55 scoreless yards against the worst
I know what
team
he
in the
did.
league.
I get it. But I think there are days that he's going to have performances that
When he did it week 1, he hasn't done it since.
I just think I'm not saying consistently. I just think there are slightly better days for Tony Pollard.
I'll do it against the Seahawks. Against the Seahawks, Tony will go for 300
Please,
total.
they have a great
All right, I
run
got a
defense.
few more.
Bobby Wagner's the best run-stopping linebacker in the league. What are you talking about?
But he hasn't ran into Tony Pollard.
Right, 55 yards against the Giants, Tony Pollard.
That's true.
That Giants defense is like I know they
The
just
New
got
Jersey
blown
Giants,
the fuck
don't
out.
forget.
I know the Giants just got blown the fuck
Look,
out, but
look.
I'm just
I love you, but you're losing this Tony Pollard debate. Okay,
Yeah.
don't try to double down on it. Okay,
I put him at an 8. I'm gonna if I need a running back,
if
I
could
don't
go
mind.
if I could go higher than a 10, I would.
Damn, so go higher.
Yeah,
You're going 11?
I go 15 on Tony.
You
Pollard.
think Tony Pollard is the biggest panic in the fantasy right now?
one at running back? Yeah.
Woo! See,
Well,
here's
past panic. He's already. It's
Yeah, but
it's a
you're
bust
also not
already.
trading him for shit because you're not going to get shit back. So
Right, exactly.
that's why I would
So I
trade
like
for
the
him.
optimism.
People like Adam.
That's why I
will
would
take Tony Pollard.
That's
because
fair.
because again, in fantasy, especially the way this is right now, like you need upside. You need someone that can
There
potentially
is
return
no
on what they're about.
upside.
Yeah, I
Dude,
disagree.
fantasy.
You think there's upside. He doesn't think there's upside.
So split the difference.
I think it's the New Jersey Giants.
All right, Saquon Barkley on a scale of 1 to 10. How much are you panicking?
I'm a
Panicking
5.
about a 6. I've seen him have good games where there's still no quarterback. There's nobody around him on offense, but he still does get it done when the matchup is right. The matchup was not right against Dallas.
Yeah.
What do you say?
I said I'm a 5. It's exactly that. Look, it sucks. It's the opposite of mouths to feed in New York. They don't, or in New Jersey. So sorry, Scott.
Yeah, of course.
They don't have anything, and so Saquon's the only guy they have. Now he can take advantage of certain matchups. Obviously, this matchup against Dallas wasn't it. I still would have liked them to get more involved in the passing game, perhaps playing from behind. So that's a little bit worrisome. But
I have him slightly
he's
higher.
explosive still, and he's gonna get his still on occasion.
I have Saquon slightly higher on my panic meter only because he's the only option there, and the offense is just so bad. Like you know where it's going, so the opportunities
The thing
aren't
is,
as
when
like
the matchup
exciting.
is right, Saquon's the type of guy that even if defenses know he's coming, he still gets his.
Yeah, he's not a 10 or 11 as you would say Tony
Yeah.
Pollard is. But
15. He said 15. Tony.
oh,
Not
you
Tony
said 15.
Pollard,
That
it's
was
like-
the number.
Like they could clear out the linebackers and he still wouldn't respond.
I'm gonna go buy Tony.
We
Right.
know that.
See you in
Nico
the
Collins.
consolation bracket.
Nico Collins, scale 1 to 10.
4.
3. You know, it's the foot. He's fine. I might go 2 on that.
Then we'll move into it. Lamar Jackson,
3.
QB 16 on the week, QB 5 on the year though. It's
2.
the third consecutive
2,
week as QB
one
15
one
or
off
worse.
week. I
One
will
off
tell you
week.
though, and I'm just going to take this. I was yelling at Caps off last week when you were talking about the Ravens being the best team in the league. I wrote an article on the GameDayFootball.com
Yep.
saying
Sure
they're a
did.
great regular season team. The two things with the Ravens in the playoffs is Lamar Jackson has a 1-3 playoff record, and he's got the same problem he's always had. Not enough playmakers.
Short. I think
That's-
Lamar Jackson is closer to, for me, it's like a 3 only because they've been winning games, and we've been saying this all year. They're winning games, and he's not having these blow up performances. They're relying on the ground a lot
That's
more.
fair.
So I just,
I
Do
can
I
see,
think
I can
Lam-
see a 4 maybe.
yeah, like, do I think Lamar is still like you're always going to start him in fantasy
Of
no matter
course.
what? You're going to ride and die with that. But at the same time, I do think because they've been winning games and he hasn't been blowing up as well, you're not panicking whatsoever, but you're definitely taking notice.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I would say. Is like the past few weeks, he hasn't been good fantasy wise, right? Like, yeah, they won a couple games, they just lost this one. But fantasy wise, I think he's been capping out at like 12 to 15.
Yeah, he was the third consecutive week as QB 15 or worse.
There you go. So, and he's still QB 5 overall. So that tells you everything you need to know.
What's
He's going to bounce
interesting
back.
to watch for waivers is Odell Beckham Jr. has now scored 2 consecutive
I
games.
do agree with
He
that.
might be starting to round into his form, and I always root for Odell because I did a promotion with him like years ago. Nicest guy. I root for Odell Beckham.
He is a really
Jr.
nice guy.
Yeah.
2 more guys on this panic meter. Sam Laporta. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you panicking on Sam Laporta?
3. I think he'll bounce back. I'm not worried about Sam Laporta.
I would agree. I think it's a similar situation with like who we talking about before? Adam Thielen, who you weren't expecting crazy shit from Sam Laporta.
I was
this year.
expecting better from Sam Laporta than I was from Adam
That's
Thielen.
fair.
He
But
didn't surprise me being the top 3 tight end.
yeah, but Laporta, I guess my point is that he really popped off early in the season. regressed a little bit. I don't think you're worried about him. He's still, you know who he is.
I don't think you're worried, but the only reason I'll put it at like a 5 is because I think after the first couple of weeks, you expected him to be a top 3 tight end. Now it's like he's averaging 7 points a game.
Here's what you have to remember. Jared Goff is a strict home quarterback. 20 going into last week, 31 of his last 41 touchdown passes came at Ford Field.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
So
Yeah, that's
Sam
crazy.
Laporta, going to play off of that. He's going to be better at home than he is on the road.
Wow. Bringing the stats in. I like that one.
Sorry, I was looking at standard on that. Sam Laporta is tight end 12 since week 6.
Okay.
So look, I think I agree with you. You're starting no matter what, but the only reason I'd put it at a 5 is like right down the middle is because the person that you thought he would be early on is kind of
If you
almost
wanna
what
say
Trey
you'd rather have
McBride
Trey
and Kincaid are.
McBride right now, I wouldn't argue with it.
Yeah, I would
Well,
probably
McBride
I would rather
over
McBride.
everybody.
Last but not
Chelsea?
least, and I think I know the answer. Travis Etienne. Scale 1 to 10. How much you panicking? His worst week of
Low.
the
I'm
year.
low on him. I'm not worried.
I think
Two,
it's I'll go 0.
1.
I'll
Like,
go 2. It's just, he ran into a buzzsaw with the 49ers coming off the bye.
yeah, and we saw
I
other
totally
teams
agree.
do the same thing against the Niners. Not worried at all. ETN gets his, man.
Yeah.
Whether it's in the receiving game, rushing.
I'll
like,
trade from right
come
now.
on.
All right, before we jump into our week 10 exhilaration meter, I want to answer some questions. Obviously, we are here with the Fantasy Football Hall of Famer, Scotty the King, and then Felipe Fontes, who is the Caps Off King.
Next to the fantasy football GOAT.
Exactly. So I see some of your questions. Make sure to submit them below. We're going to answer them. This guy on TikTok says, trade Keenan Allen for Justin Jefferson.
No.
Yeah, I would
Justin-
prefer Keenan Allen.
Yeah, well, Jefferson, I'm not sure he's going to come back this week. And whenever you make a trade, I say this: you either want to fill a need or make an upgrade, and that trade does neither of it.
Bro, Keenan Allen's wide receiver 2 on the year PPR. We were looking at it yesterday, Adam, just going from game to game from week 1 all the way through week 10. It's literally insane. I mean, I think he's had like 2 40-point performances.
Yeah.
It's wild. You're not doing that.
I
You
mean,
don't need Justin Jefferson if you have Keenan Allen.
On that conversation too, like everyone's freaking out about how AJ Brown has been in fantasy. Keenan Allen has more points than him. Now, granted, AJ Brown was on a bye this week, and I get that, but still has 205 total
Keenan's
fantasy
ridiculous.
points. Like and a underrated
Keenan
one who had a
Allen
bad
and
week.
Tyler Lockett of like 2 of the guys that proved that people always say, "Oh, he's 30 years old. I'm worried about him." They're both 31. 31's not the end of a line. for a
Keenan,
wide
and he looks
receiver.
great.
Hey, Mike Evans looks good too.
Yeah, he does.
LBB Spank
Another good
says Tua or Josh Dobbs in fantasy. I would say rest of season. Who would you prefer?
one. Tua.
I think
Tua.
that,
Dobbs only posts adequate fantasy stats, and he will elevate by his rushing numbers. I mean, he's rushed for touchdowns in 4 consecutive games.
Yeah.
That's not sustainable.
Beezy Boy says he was responding to our question. So McBride over Laporta. The question I'll ask you is, who would you prefer rest of season? Trey McBride or Sam Laporta?
It's so close. I think in the standard league for touchdowns, I would prefer Laporta. In the PPR, I would prefer McBride.
I totally agree.
Yeah, give me McBride all day, man. That's my guy. Somehow me and him need to connect.
Chrissy on TikTok says Deontay Foreman. What are your thoughts on the future usage of Deontay Foreman? We were talking about it a little bit.
Khalil Herbert's going to come back, so it's going to be more of a split workload. You probably won't see the value be higher than it is now.
Heber on TikTok. Last question before we jump into the exhilaration meter. Trade away Stephon Diggs. Bill's got the hardest schedule coming up. Are you trading away Stephon Diggs?
I'm not trading him just to trade him. Here's the thing with schedule: the defense doesn't always win the matchup, and the reason why Stephon Diggs is a superstar is because he's often excelled or played well against top defenses.
Yep.
That's the difference between the superstar. You can't always just look at the schedule and say, "Oh, I'm going to lower my expectations." He have a great game the other night. Patrick Surtain's a really good cover corner. Denver's playing, but I wouldn't get rid of him just to get rid of him.
Let's see what you can get.
I see what I can get, but just because he has a tough schedule doesn't mean that Stephon Diggs is not going to not play well.
Diggs is it's still cute.
But
Wide
they
receiver
do have
4
a
on the
week
year.
13 bye though, so that's something
adds
to
to it.
throw in there too.
Wide receiver 4 on the year. Again, we talk about Tyreek and Keenan Allen. We were just talking about AJ Brown. Stephon Diggs, 201 fantasy points on the year. Like he has been exactly what
gets
you
it done against everybody.
And I know people are going to panic over like him complaining. Trayvon Diggs obviously tweeted out. I think they'll be fine. Now, granted, what happens in the offseason,
fantasy-wise, they'll be fine.
Yeah, whatever happens in the offseason is one thing, but I think Stephon Diggs will be fine unless you could get. What would you trade What would you need back if you were trading Stephon Diggs?
I'd be looking to fill a need. I would want to get a top running back back.
Mm.
If I'm working a trade around, say, Diggs for Eckler,
So you want
I need
superstar
running
for
back help.
superstar.
I want superstar for superstar. I trade Stephon Diggs away. I'm not settling. I don't offer me Tony Pollard for Stephon Diggs.
Yeah. All right. I
Adam
want to.
will though.
Yeah.
What?
You would though.
I would do Stephon Diggs for Tony Pollard for sure.
I wish I was in this league.
I want to move into Week 10's exhilaration meter. A little bit of a new thing I'm going to bring to you, right? So we always talk about panic meters and how much you're panicking based off of performance. I want to flip it. I want to do the opposite.
Okay.
I want to give you a bunch of players that performed well in Week 10, and I want you to tell me how exhilarated you are, how excited you are by this performance, or if you're just totally out on it. So we'll say 10 is the closest thing to being like, I'm all in, I buy it,
Yeah.
this is the norm, and then 1 is like, ignore it, never happening again.
Okay.
So we'll start with Devin Singletary, 23.1 fantasy points.
5, 4.
4.
Any
I
reason?
I don't believe in it. Although
30 carries, I think.
He's better than Damian Pierce. I've been saying this. He's
Damian Pierce has just not been good in the Texans.
Yeah.
I'll say 5 because he's never going to have a game like this the rest of the season. But now it could be a timeshare in Houston when Pierce comes back. Just 13 carries for 26 yards the previous week. But like I say in my waiver wire column on thegameday.com with Singletary, Houston's done a great job of getting max out of their players more than we've expected.
Yeah.
So the reason why I'm tempering my expectations is why I feel like Pierce comes back, it's still going to be a timeshare.
Javonte Williams, 21 fantasy points last night on Monday Night Football.
Oh, I'm at like a 6 or 7.
I might be at like an 8, bro. Like-
I'm in a 7.5. He's ever since he came back from that quad injury, he's running really well.
Do you remember like week 3 or week 4? I was talking about Javonte, and you were like,
Yeah.
I'm off him. I'm like,
But
it's
now,
coming.
Now I'm on him. You were right.
Validation
It's twice in 1 week.
from the fantasy goat.
I validate part.
Jalen Warren, 19 fantasy points. Are you exhilarated by it? Are you ignoring it?
It was nice for me in DFS, but I'd say a 4. Just Najee Harris is always going to be there. Najee's running hard. He is.
Allegedly, Mike Tomlin named
just
Jalen
don't-
Warren the starter Saturday night.
Yeah,
That's
but
what he said.
But starting means you're on the play for the first field of the game.
But it's also just preference.
Harris is still there and still running hard. I don't trust either Pittsburgh running back, and I think near the goal line it's going to be Harris over Warren.
What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, Najee's getting a lot of touches still. Like, you can't ignore that. It's not Jalen Warren had a good game, don't get me wrong, but Najee actually did too.
Yeah.
Najee was violently slamming into defenders. He was running hard.
I would put it at a 5 because it's somewhere in the middle of it. I might look to like move Jalen Warren and see if you can get something back for him. Bijan Robinson, 17.6 fantasy points. On a scale of 1 to 10, how exhilarated are you by that performance?
7.
I thought he was going to say 17.
It might be. Well, he just
I
did
had
the
the
dynasty trade.
ridiculous dynasty trade from Bijan
Damn
Robinson.
straight.
I don't know if we're going to get into it, but
We definitely are
he
not.
We're not, yeah.
he basically like pulled off a Herschel Walker, Ricky Williams kind of thing where he was like,
Yeah, but it's going to work
on
this
the
time.
Yeah, but I
wrong
trust
side
my
of it.
guy. He's a
Thank you.
dynasty dog.
Thank you.
The best GM's figured out.
Yep.
Sometimes the
And
best GMs make mistakes.
the best GMs go
Like
get their
trading for
guy.
like trading for
They
Tony
don't
Pollard.
give up 5 quality players and a first round pick for them.
Hey, when they're bench players,
On a scale of 1 to 10, thoughts on Bijan Robinson? Where are you putting that number at?
I would say 6 because of Arthur Smith.
Yeah.
Ask Frank and Morante, who tweets about Arthur Smith 50 times a day
literally.
and how much he hates him. His exhilaration is probably about 2.
Yeah, I think
He'd
it's like
probably tell you to trade Bijan right now.
I think it's like 6 or 7 probably because I think we've been saying this at Arthur Smith's somewhat coaching for his job based off of the way this season ends up finishing with the amount of talent that they have. So I think it's like somewhere in the middle. Dak Prescott, scale 1 to 10. Are we exhilarated by his performance? Are we?
I would say
ignoring
I would
it?
say 7. Because yes, they've had good matchups recently. I just read off the past 4 weeks. He's leading the league in pretty much every
You want to
category.
be considered a good quarterback, though. You got to take advantage of the matchups.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. So then what I would say is that matchups are going to get harder. Not the next couple weeks. He's got some easy ones on the next couple weeks, but they are going to have to face, the Eagles again, and then you got the Bills and stuff like that. So it's
Let's see
gonna
what he's doing here.
it's gonna average out. But what I will say is why I'm confident in Dak, and I'll put him at around a 7 or 8 in terms of exhilaration, is because Mike McCarthy looks really, really good. He's putting Dak in those positions to succeed. So I would say that. And Dak is running a lot more. That can't get overshadowed.
I'm in a 7 too. I always felt like he's an underrated fantasy quarterback, and I don't mind having him as a starter. I noticed he left the Seahawks out of those matchups. Obviously, he hasn't watched the Seahawks games.
Yeah, I mean, I
Very good
I put him
secondary.
around the 7 mark as well.
Yeah.
I think like he's running more. The offense looks better. I think he could be a top 10 quarterback the rest of the season. So
Yeah,
I think it's
sure.
definitely something to take note of.
Yeah.
Josh Dobbs had 25.1 fantasy points, scale 1 to 10. Are we ignoring it? Are we buying it? What are we doing?
I'm 5 because, like I said, he puts up adequate passing numbers. He rushed for touchdowns in 4 consecutive games, 40+ yards, 4 of his last 5. I think people are getting a little excited because of the overall story. I know a football life on Josh Dobbs is probably coming next week, but I just don't. I'm still skeptical that he's quite this good because I hate to do this. I'm going to compare this to Geno. Geno was playing balling out the first 12 weeks of last year, and I feel like when defenses started to adjust to him more, the production started to come down. So I feel like there's going to be a cap some point, 3rd, 4th game. All of a sudden, Dobbs is going to regress.
Your boy Josh Dobbs, what are you putting in?
Man, I'm at a 7. I think that yes, you talk about obviously the rushing upside has brought him up the past few weeks, but I think that continues. Defenses can figure him out. I don't think it'll be all like right now. I don't think it'll be this season necessarily. And I think he'll just keep putting up what he's putting up. It's just not what you expected. That's why I'm a little bit higher than usual. And if I'm replacing a quarterback that got hurt or like replacing a bye week with him, I'm really excited about that. So yeah, I'll put him around a 7.
2 more guys. Noah Brown. He's wide receiver 3 over the last 2 weeks.
Like a 3. I'm not excited at all about Noah Brown.
I'm a 5 because here's the thing. As a football player, Noah Brown seems like a guy who the team loves internally, like they did in Dallas. He was a glue guy. He's willing to make tough catch in traffic. He's got downfield gears. But as soon as Nico Collins comes back, I think his production suffers.
It's fair. And last but not least, I was going to do Brandon Cooks, but I don't think anyone's really taking stock of it. I mean, unless you want to do
Brandon. Go Brandon.
He's my
Cooks.
top wide receiver in my waiver column on the game day.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, are you buying it or selling it essentially?
I'm buying in on him because it took a while for him to adjust, but he's caught touchdown passes in 3 of his last 4 games. He's not going to have a game like he did against the Giants this past week again, but he's the number 2 receiver that this team needed, and he's fitting into that role.
Brandon Cooks, wide receiver 8 over the last 2 weeks.
Damn. Yeah, I would go like 3.
6-time 1,000-yard receiver.
Yeah, no, he's underrated. And last but not least, on a scale of 1 to 10, in our exhilaration meter, Trey McBride.
10, 30, 10,000. 10,000.
I'm in a 9.
Yeah, I think you have to. I think like out of all these people that I've mentioned, outside of maybe Javonte Williams, like Trey McBride is the one that you're like, this guy, maybe not to the extent of 21 fantasy points, but he's going to keep performing.
The last year and a half learning under Zach Ertz.
Yeah, that's huge.
What always veterans in every sport will take a young guy under their wing.
Right.
And learning from Zach Ertz,
oh man,
you can see that's rubbing off.
Also, people forget Zach Ertz was tight end 3 on the year last year with Kyler Murray. And Trey McBride is just a better athlete at this point over Zach Ertz in his career. So yeah, I think you got to definitely take stock of that.
Yep,
McBride is him, man.
All right, well, hey, good episode. A lot of information. Good job, Scott.
That was fun.
We got a few questions before we sign off.
A couple quickly.
Let's see. Let's find a good one. Shout out Matthew Port. He said, "You guys are the only reason I went from 0-5 to 5-5. Thank you for doing this. You guys help a ton."
That is proof that you should never give up. Because in one of my big money leagues 4 years ago, I started 1-6 and I never lost again through the Super Bowl.
That's crazy.
And that's what you're gonna do.
Hey, shout out to you, man. That's awesome.
That's awesome. Heber on TikTok said Stephon Diggs and George Kittle for Alvin Kamara and Brandon Ayuk. He has AJ Brown and needs a running back. Not doing that.
I think he's giving up a little too much.
Okay.
You were gonna say otherwise, weren't you?
No, I'm with them.
Would you trade Thick Really or Thick _ Rye says trade ETN for Josh Jacobs and Hollywood Brown?
No. And Hollywood Brown. I wouldn't do it either. You're trading the best player in this
trade. Like a top 5-6 running back.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
And Hollywood Brown, wide receiver 2, but then the other player you're getting back. No.
Last question on this. I've seen this a ton of questions with Trevor Lawrence. So What do you do with Trevor Lawrence? This is from Brandon on TikTok.
I mean,
You bench him right now. He's a streamer.
Is he
You know,
droppable?
He's not droppable, but right now he's a streamer. You don't cut him because he does have the talent around him and his own talent to bounce back. But it's hard to start him right now.
Right.
You know, if you have Sam Howell, you start him over Trevor Lawrence.
yeah.
If you don't cut him.
All
right. Well, hey, this was a great episode. Scotty, thanks for coming in and doing this again. We love having you on. Plug yourself again on Twitter, what you got on thegameday.com.
At Scotty the King on X.
X. I like Twitter. Yep.
You can also find me at thegameday.com. My sleepers,
Bingo.
my bus, and my waiver wire is up right now, plus my betting analysis, my props. I think I had a good week after a run of a few bad weeks. Check me out on Seahawks.com every Tuesday and Wednesday.
Damn straight.
The Fantasy Insider tab. That's me.
Love it.
And I go around the league, not just the Seahawks, and also rotoballer.com, where you can check out a lot of my other stuff.
I love it.
And SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
God, he's everywhere.
Sirius and XM 87, Saturdays 5 to 6 Eastern.
I love it.
Yo, Scott, you're everywhere. Hey, fantasy god right here. Come on.
By the way, Ken
Don't
Dorsey
sleep.
just got fired as offensive coordinator in Buffalo.
Wow.
Mid-season move. Yeah, but as a reminder, this was our fantasy recaps episode. We do have another fantasy episode on Thursday. That'll be our buy low, sell high. So if you have a ton of trade questions, don't know who to target, who you can trade away, make sure to tune into that. That's a live episode at 10:30 a.m. on Thursday. Also, if you're here from TikTok or on YouTube, make sure to check out our episode that drops tomorrow, our cafeteria episode, where we'll go through a bunch of games. I know we have some good ones to talk about this week. And then Friday will be our predictions episode. Sunday, we'll be doing a watch along again. King, it's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
Great to be here. And now I got to go do my fantasy basketball lineups. Check out my fantasy basketball waiver wire on Fridays on the game day.
Who the fuck's playing fantasy basketball? That's the real question. You know what I'm saying?
Some people play that.
Some people play that.
As we depart all of our fantasy episodes, we do it in one specific way. It's Felipe's words of wisdom. What do you got for us on this Tuesday morning?
Hey, whatever you do in your life, strive to be as great as Scott Eagle is at fantasy football.
Let's go. We will see you tomorrow for our cafeteria episode. I love you all. Goodbye.
Peace.